Throughout my entire life, I have always found it incredibly hard to reject people. And historically, I've found it really hard to say no to people. Almost like Ella Enchanted, where she had to just automatically go along with what anyone wanted her to do. You know what I mean? But I've always been hypersensitive to rejecting other people. And I don't think that I'm really sensitive to being rejected. I think because I preempt rejection with an expectation that I'll be rejected. So when I get rejected, I'm like almost kind of relieved, like, oh, thank God, finally it's resolved, and I can move on. What's worse is being held in waiting and not knowing the outcome. That's almost worse because at least if I'm rejected, it's like ripping the band-aid off. I can, move on knowing the answer. But for some reason, I struggle immensely to do that for other people. For some reason, the act of saying no to other people, especially in the context of when they are attracted to me and I'm not attracted to them back, that's the hardest scenario by far for me because I don't even know the reason. And I've thought about it for over a decade. Why is this so hard for me? Why does this seem easy enough for everyone else, but I can't seem to do it? Rejecting people for me has always felt immensely painful. I almost feel like it's far more painful for me than it is for them because I think a lot of people are like me and they're like, can you just tell me so I can move on? Like they would actually appreciate it. But I don't know. I think it's hyper painful for me because I grew up in a really chaotic environment where I was never really allowed to say no to my caregivers, my parents. Saying no would lead me to be punished. And that was true for my entire fucking life. And so I deeply internalized this belief that if I say no to someone, it'll be really painful and catastrophic. And so even though I'm no longer living under my parents, um, and I'm no longer being punished for saying no to people, it's still so deeply ingrained in my brain that if I reject someone or say no, it's really, really painful. Like it's just hardwired to associate saying no to people with immense pain and catastrophic outcomes because that's what was programmed into me from a very early age. I was never allowed to say no to my parents. Like whatever they said was law and I had to obey it. And I feel like you know, I don't know how to overcome this other than obviously exposure therapy. But the funny thing about exposure therapy is it's really hard to do by yourself. And I don't know of any kind of therapy where people are like, let's go through your Tinder history or your Grinder history and just tell everyone, hey, I'm not attracted to you. You know what I mean? And like even using these apps at all is so triggering to me because obviously you receive unwanted attention from people you have no attraction to, and there's no way to opt out of it. So I'm receiving all of this attention, and like guys are really entitled. I think they don't realize that I'm being flooded with messages from like hundreds of people all at once, because I'm in a city with like 22 million people, so like people are reaching out to me nonstop. And I don't know, it's really triggering to my rejection sensitive dysphoria. I don't think this term applies, but I'm using it anyway. You get what I'm trying to say. Like I'm hypersensitive to not being able to live up to other people's expectations, not being able to, you know, reciprocate their interest. It's a form of rejection and it's really painful for me. And I never hear anyone talking about this concept, nor do I ever hear people talking about the solution. There's plenty of, self help articles or YouTube videos or whatever talking about how to say no to people, but nobody ever talks about it in the context of dating or romantic attraction or physical or sexual attraction or anything like that. To me, that is the most difficult scenario by far. I'm not quite sure why it is the most difficult scenario. I think because it just feels like it's highly linked to emotion, like if somebody asked for something, I don't know, totally trivial and inconsequential, like, do you want to go see this movie with me? in a non-romantic context, saying no would be far easier. But when they're like, hey, I'm really attracted to you and I want to go to a date with you, to me, oh my God, that is so hard to say no to. Not because I want to say yes, I don't, especially if I'm not attracted to them. But it's just so hard to say no because in my head, I'm like catastrophizing how they will experience the no. Like, would it really crush them and hurt their feelings? Realistically, probably not. They're probably like me, and they would receive a clear answer as like appreciated, especially if it's delivered kindly. But I don't know. It's like a trauma response. I have no control over it. It just happens automatically where I just want to avoid the scenario entirely because it's immensely painful. The fact that they even asked at all is immensely painful, and it already triggers the feeling of pain before I've even said anything in response. You know what I mean? And so this is why I find apps like Grindr like really challenging to use. Like I recently moved to a new city and I want to meet people, especially fellow gay people, but I don't know how to do that other than to use Grindr. But the thing about that is obviously, the expectation on Grindr is that I'm looking for sex, and of course I'm not because I have no interest in casual sex at all. I've tried it and I don't like it. Um, so when I'm on there, people are like obviously wanting to fuck me, and I don't have any interest in them or in casual sex, both. And so it's like I don't know how to meet people other than to use this app. Uh, Gay people, I mean, but also simultaneously using this app is really triggering and painful for me, and I don't know what to do about it. I guess when I lived in Denver, there were a lot of gay sports leagues that I could join. And that was my saving grace because there was no expectation for me to be attracted to anyone. I was just there to play sports, and then I could, interact and bond with my fellow gay people, my peers, and make friends with no pressure at all to be attracted to anyone. But here, I haven't found anything like that. And I don't even know where I would look because it's a completely different country. They probably don't even use the same sorts of, I don't know, meetup groups or I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know where to look. I wonder if any of you can relate to what I'm talking about. This hypersensitivity to rejection, not being rejected, because I find that perfectly easy, but having to reject other people is what's extremely painful. And even just other people making bids on my attention that I can't reciprocate. And, especially when they're attracted to me, this is the ultimate torture for me because I don't know why it is so painful to have to tell them that I don't reciprocate and I have no interest, So I often find myself not responding at all because also I feel like that's very socially acceptable to just not respond, especially on an app like Grindr. Like the expectation is if you're not interested, you just simply won't respond. And that makes it easier. But sometimes, the interest is delivered in person, like when I'm at a bar or something. And oh my God, having to tell them live in person that I'm not interested is something that I have failed countless times throughout my life. And I've even like given guys numbers, my number that I had no attraction to at all. And I had to tell them after the fact, you know? Um, and it's just mortifying to be in this situation. I don't know what to do about it. And I never hear anyone talking about it, you know? Because like I know in the moment that I'm not interested, but I don't know how to tell them, I guess I just don't have like the social skills or the charisma to like deliver the information in a way that won't be painful for the other person, and I know this is all in my head and I'm like fabricating it. Like I don't actually know how the other person is going to respond to it. Maybe they're going to be like, oh, okay, no worries, or maybe they're going to blow up in my face and get like really bitchy. You know what I mean? I think it's the second one that has me so traumatized because that's, the earliest memories that I have of having to say no to my parents and then they like blowing up in my face about it. You know what I mean? And it just got so hardwired in my brain to expect horrible responses if I say no to people. And and the thing is it's not something you can really overcome because people like that still exist, right? Even though it's not my parents anymore, Men absolutely still act like that sometimes. So it's like, how am I ever supposed to overcome this when it still happens? You know what I mean? Anyway, let me know if you have any thoughts about that.